Hello YouTube, Ultra Maximus back with the second in my series of top 10 movies, and this time the genre is none other than science fiction. So again, just to reiterate, if you haven't seen the first part of the series, I'm going through as a film fan and looking at each genre of film, whether it be horror, science fiction, romance, westerns, war movies, comedies, etc., and what my top 10 favorites are and why. Not because they were the biggest money makers, not because the critics loved them, not because of the special effects, but why I think they are my top 10 films for that genre. So let's take a look at the science fiction top 10. At number 10, we've got Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Another great film by Steven Spielberg. With the tagline is Close Encounter of the First Kind, sighting of a UFO. Close Encounter of the Second Kind, physical evidence. Close Encounter of the Third Kind, contact. Which is phenomenal. This whole movie kind of goes back to those old Hitchcockian ways of doing things as far as thrillers go, horror movies go. Build up, build up, build up, build up. We see the UFOs. We've got a group of different people from different walks of life that encounter them. Richard Dreyfuss, we got the kid and the mother and all kinds of stuff. And we see the UFOs. They have physical evidence with the burns and things to that nature. And it goes on, and they go on this drive until they actually find the aliens. At the end, they have the encounter at the mountain and the military base and the music and all that kind of good stuff. So, I mean, this is just a classic science fiction film. Very good, very fun ride, a little bit scary. It's kind of like that ghost story type of thrill. It's a fun, thrilling sci-fi romp and absolutely deserves to be in the top 10. At number 9, we've got The Abyss. James Cameron brings us this fantastic underwater science fiction film. This is a great movie. Another alien movie, which is fine, but the twist is they're under the ocean. You've got this dive team looking for a submarine with Ed Harris, as the main character, and they come across these aliens. And they're aquatic by nature, so they're hiding under the water and they're dealing with it and exploring, figuring out, and the thing comes up at the end, and you've got the water probe that comes in. It looks all cute and everything, and then things get a little bit scary, get a little bit creepy, and it just all falls apart. Phenomenal film. It's just the special effects, and of course, I think this is the beginning of James Cameron and his passion for the oceans and dealing with films on the ocean and underwater and all that kind of thing. So, absolute great film. One of James Cameron's best movies, and definitely a solid in the top 10. Alright, number 8 is The Terminator with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Great 80s film, obviously an awesome action movie, but it's way more sci-fi than it is action, about a robotic Terminator from the future sent back in time to kill the mother of the leader of the human resistance in a war against the humans and the machines. Just great film. All came around because James Cameron had a nightmare with a skeleton coming out of fire, which we get to see that at the end of the film. Just phenomenal. Great flick. Started a great series of movies. Epic 1980s flick. Definite sci-fi staple. Alright, and at number 7 is E.T., the Extraterrestrial. Another classic science fiction film and epic Steven Spielberg movie. This is probably his best known film. This is probably his climax of his cinematic career, I would think. I remember going to see this as a child. This was my mother's absolute favorite film. She loved this movie. You know, I grew up with this movie. It is a fantastic film. You know, it's about his adventure on Earth. E.T. basically gets lost from his spaceship as his species is on Earth, kind of investigating a forest or something, and then they take off and they forget him, and he runs into Elliot, and the boy befriends him, and it's about his little adventure on Earth, while the spaceship's like, oh hey, we forgot him, and they had to go back and find him, kind of thing. Just, it's very heartwarming, very funny. There are parts that were scary to me as a child, with the government coming in and them being the bad guys, not the aliens, that type of thing. It's a great all-round, you can sit with your family and generations of family members can watch this movie together and appreciate something out of it. Whether it's funny, it's cute, the science involved in it, the, you know, heartbreak and the heart warmth, all that kind of stuff. All-round epic film. Right, at number 6 we have James Cameron's Avatar. And you know what? When I first watched this movie, I didn't really like it. I called it Dancing with Klingons, because it was basically Dancing with Wolves in space. But I didn't see it in 3D. And what makes this movie epic, I mean, it's a good movie. It's well written, and we've got great scenes and great characters, great actors. And what really set this movie out was this was the first big 3D phenomenon that has now pushed all these great 3D movies out and really pushed the technology and really put depth into the picture. So aside from it being an epic scale film like Star Wars and those kind of things, it also changed the way films are made. Not just science fiction movies, but kids films, comic book movies. All these different films are coming out in 3D, and it's thanks to Avatar, which is phenomenal. It just, the scenes on the planet itself are just amazing, the creatures, all that kind of stuff. And of course, Sigourney Weaver does an excellent job, as she usually does, as the scientist, and very different from other characters that she's ever played in the past. So, absolute industry-changing, monumental film, Avatar. Breaking into the top 5, we have Alien by Ridley Scott. In space, no one can hear you scream. Such a phenomenal movie. Another Sigourney Weaver film. We've got a group of miners, I believe. Were they miners? Going out, and they come across an alien vessel, and inside they find the xenomorph and the facehugger, and it affects them. And it's got all those classic things you want in, you know, science fiction films. They're out in space, they're lost. You've got this alien parasite monster thing trying to hunt them down. There's an android on the ship. There's betrayal. All that kind of good stuff is going on. And you know, the scene where the chest burster comes out and busts out of the chest, that was phenomenal. The reaction from the crew is genuine, because the director and the special effects guy and the particular actor involved didn't tell any of the others what was going on. They were just filming a dinner scene, and that thing comes out, and the screams and reactions on that shot are genuine, which is absolutely brilliant. I mean, it's a scary movie. It's, you know, thrilling. The effects are amazing, and it launched a great series of movies and comics, and you can't go wrong with this film. It's a must-have for every movie collector. Number 4, Back to the Future. Another Steven Spielberg production. Robert Zemeckis, a fantastic director, gave us Michael J. Fox and Chris Lloyd, and it's just a phenomenal movie. It's a time travel movie. It's a great comedy. What really kicked Michael J. Fox's career into overdrive. Essentially, he builds a time machine. Doc Brown builds a time machine out of DeLorean, and Michael J. Fox's character, Marty, ends up accidentally going back to the past 30 years, messes up his parents' future, and he's got to fix it, all that kind of good stuff. So it's a fun romp through time, very funny. Just absolutely nothing like that's happened before. He's stuck in the past and he's got to get back to the future. It was so original, so upbeat, very funny, just the epitome of adventure, comedy, and good storytelling, great special effects. There's a reason this is on every single holiday and played. All three films are played over and over again. It's that damn good. Number 3 is Jurassic Park. Tagline of an adventure 65 million years in the making. Probably one of my favorite movies of all time. This is the movie that made me want to get into the motion picture business, get into the storytelling business. This was great. Another Steven Spielberg movie. The guy just knocks him out of the park. Fantastic. We've got John Williams doing the music on it. Of course, the cast is fantastic. But what really just brings this to life is the dinosaurs, the effects on this. This is another industry-changing film. When this came out, CG was just coming into its own, and when you were sitting in the theaters and those dinosaurs came out and that T-Rex roared at you, it was alive. I mean, there was just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And it's coming out next year, I believe, for the 20th anniversary in 3D, which is going to be phenomenal. Can't wait for it. But this film is classic. It's adventure, it's comedy, it's scary, it's everything you want in a film. You know, it's just, and it's based off of the book by Michael Crichton, who's one of my favorite authors because he blends science fiction and science fantasy together to, you know, or science reality actually together, and it just, like, it's so close that this could almost happen. We can believe that this could one day happen. And the funny thing is, this is actually almost a remake of a book he had done earlier in the 70s called Westworld, which was about cowboy androids in a western theme park, and they went to test drive the theme park, and the cowboys, the androids, start attacking the guests. Same concept of Jurassic Park. We've got genetically engineered dinosaurs in a theme park that during the test of it, it goes awry. So it was nice that he could reinvent something that was successful then and reinvent it in the 90s. But with Spielberg involved, it just became a phenomenon. Absolute one of my favorite films of all time. Kind of funny that number 2 ended up becoming a sequel film, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, with the tagline of, "At the end of the universe is only the beginning of vengeance." Fantastic film. If you are a Star Trek fan, if you are a sci-fi fan, this is one of your favorite movies of all times, guaranteed. This film really kind of kickstarts the Star Trek movies. There was Star Trek the motion picture, but it wasn't until Star Trek II that we see the classic films in their formats that we're used to seeing them in. And it harkens back to an old episode called The Space Seed, where Khan was one of Kirk's rivals, and, you know, he was the bad guy, and Tossel tried to take control of the Enterprise, and Kirk ends up winning at the end. Well, Khan comes back for vengeance because they left him and they never went back to check on him, and the planet went to hell, and now this genius from the past has come back to try to get vengeance on Kirk, and it's just absolute phenomenal. We see some of the best writing of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, and the banter between the entire crew. And of course, we have Spock sacrificing himself at the end with the famous lines of, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or the one. And it's just absolute great stuff. It's actually, when you look at the story, it's very similar to that of Moby Dick. In fact, I've seen editorials and reviews where people have said this is Moby Dick in space, and it's pretty spot on, definitely. And just great stuff, great stuff from Star Trek, where most of it was kind of bright and shiny, and this really kind of showed you the darker side of what can happen in this Star Trek universe. So absolutely one of the best science fiction films ever made. Thank you, Gene Roddenberry. And the #1 science fiction film has got to be none other than Star Wars. Tagline of a long time ago in a galaxy far away, which is the opening bits of the film. This movie changed the science fiction genre. In fact, it changed the motion picture industry. What's great about this movie, it pulls so much, and of course it made such a great saga, a great series of films, but Star Wars really pulls from so many different classical stories, classic Greek stories. It pulls from religion, it pulls from all types of great things, and it just builds this great space opera, and it's just phenomenal. And the other thing that was great about Star Wars is, one, Lucas wanted it to be a serial, like he saw when he went to the theaters as a kid. They had these, the Flash Gordon serials, and Buck Rogers and all that kind of good stuff, and he wanted that kind of feel. So we started in episode 4. It's in the middle, and that's what a good movie does. You start in the middle with action and drag your audience in, and it really did that. In fact, they got in trouble for that because they didn't put actors' credits at the beginning of the film. They just, episode, a long time ago in a galaxy far away, Star Wars, bum, ba-dum, and then, episode 1, and it gets into the movie. You don't see the credits until the very end, and they got in trouble for doing that kind of stuff. But he wanted it to be different. And the other thing that was different was it was a used universe. Most science fiction films up until that point were very shiny clean. This wasn't. It was a used universe. You bought used spaceships, and you had junky stuff, and it really showed that in this film, and that made it so relatable. And the effects, the special effects were amazing. They're obviously, groundbreaking. But the other thing that this film does, it changed the way films are made, were the edits. All those different wipes and cuts and fades were not done that way until Star Wars. And that really changed the look of films by that movie coming out and hitting the screens. And I don't think any bad thing I can think of to say about these movies. They are just all-time classics and will live on for generations. So there it is, the top 10 science fiction films. I hope you guys liked it. Check out some of my other videos, subscribe, give me comments. What are your favorites? Did you not see something you liked? Make a video, leave a comment, and keep an eye out for other videos in this series. So thanks for watching, guys, and have a good one.